Hi, I'm Victoria and welcome to EPP Basics. In this session we're going to talk about basting. Basting is where you wrap your fabric around your paper templates and secure it before you stitch them together to create your final design. There are three main methods of basting. There's glue basting and there's two different methods of basting using a needle and thread. In this session I've got some demonstrations and some samples to show you the differences, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the pros and cons of each style. So, you ready to get going?
You have a few choices when basting your hexes. I've got samples here of the three most common methods that people tend to use when doing English paper piecing. First of all, we have stitching through the fabric and your paper template. There's stitching through your fabric only, and then there's glue basting. So I'll show you each of those and we'll talk about the pros and cons of each of those methods. So let's start off with the first method I have here, which is basting through the fabric and through the papers. I'll just lift it up to the camera to see if you can see a little bit closer. You can see this stitching going through the fabric, and you can see that on the right side of your hexie. So in order to do that method, you take your fabric that's been cut out and you place your template in the middle. I like to start mine off by taking this first edge and folding it over and giving it a finger press. So just run your fingernail along the side, and then I'll secure this first fold in place using a paper clip or a sewing clip. It's entirely up to you. Sewing clips are great for all sorts of bits and pieces, but for this sample I'll use a paper clip. I like it because it secures more of the paper to more of the fabric, if that makes sense. So I'll start off like that. I'll then take this next edge, this is the next edge that I'm going to baste in place, and I'm going to fold it over this first edge. So I'll just place my thumb up against here and then fold over and give it another finger press along the edge. I'll then take my needle and thread, and I've got a knot in the end of this thread, which you don't necessarily need to do, but I've done that for this first one. And I'm going to just stitch through this first turned over edge and the second turned over edge. I'll start that again. I'll just run 2 stitches through. You don't need to pull too hard. And then I'm going to poke the needle through this top side, through the fabric, through all layers to come out on the right side of the hexie. I'm then going to come along to this next edge and fold over like I did before, trying to get that nice sharp point. I'm going to come from the underside, I'm going to come up through all layers at the fold, and I'm going to go back down just a few millimeters from where I came through in the first place and pull it all the way through. And I'm going to continue on round the shape as I go. And I'm talking about hexes and I'm showing hexes today, but this is pretty much the same method that you would use for any other English paper piecing shapes that you've got. So up and back down. Careful not to tangle your thread. And all the way around. So you can see that it's not terribly difficult, and like with the other methods, it's quite a nice methodical process to go through, and it's nice and portable. You can take it wherever you like and work on it as and when you get a chance. So I'll just come through this one again, repeating the same process through all layers, up and back down, a few millimeters from where you came up, and work your way back round. Oh, stuck on the paper clip. And just come round and fold this final corner in. Last time, up and down. And you've got a choice here. You can either just finish off sewing and secure here, but I quite like to work my way back round to where I started. It's all down to personal preference, and as you stitch, you'll learn what works best for you. So I'll bring that back round here so you can see there, and I've completed all the way around on 6 sides. Totally up to you. And then I'll secure that off. Just go back on yourself, over, and snip your thread. So there you have a hexie that's been basted in place through the fabric and through the paper. The next method I'd like to show you is where you stitch baste your paper around your hexies through the fabric only. So you can see here you don't have any of your stitches on the outside or the right side of your hexie, and all your stitches are hidden on the reverse. So that one, like before, you take your hexie template and you place that on the middle of your piece of fabric. I start off with the same way as I fold over that first edge and give it a finger press. This time, shall I use a sewing clip? I'll place my sewing clip on this first edge, fold over the second side, grab my needle and thread, and I'll start stitching. I'll do a couple of stitches across that first fold. I've not put a knot on the end of this one. You don't necessarily need to. I'll just go over a couple of times at that first corner, and that first corner is now secured, plenty enough for what we're doing. Then work along to the next corner, fold it over, hold it in place with your thumb, just the edge of it, and then I'll run that just through the papers, through the fabric. And I like to do 2 little stitches on each corner. I don't know why, it's these things that you get little habits. So I'll go through again, keep folding and keep stitching through those sides. So the benefit of this one over stitching through your papers is, of course, these stitches are hidden on the inside of your hexies. So when it comes to sewing together your project, you haven't got a bunch of threads to take out. The only thing I would say, though, is when you're doing this, make sure that if you're using lighter coloured fabrics, that your thread isn't too dark and isn't going to show through, because that would make you really cross if you'd done that and chosen a dark thread. So go for something light. And when I'm doing basting, you don't need to use any particular thread, nothing too expensive or fancy. Just overlocking thread works absolutely fine. Any old threads that you probably wouldn't stick in your sewing machine because they're old, you could use those. Anything you've got lying around, it works absolutely fine. So I'll go there, and again I like to come back to the beginning and just run 2 stitches through, and that's that one done. I'll just snip off that thread. So there's that one basted in place. So that one doesn't take much different time to basting through the papers. That's the finished hexie with your threads on the inside. So you want to see those both together. You've got the one through and the one that's on the reverse. Okay. So those are the 2 stitching methods that I like to use when doing hexies. And the final method is a glue method, and I find this glue method is super quick. It's really fast. The only problem with it, I find, is that I like to work on a hard surface, so I don't find this method quite as portable as the other 2 methods. But it is fun and fast, and it really I think it depends on what you're trying to get out of when you're doing English paper piecing. If you just like the process of sitting still and doing a bit of stitching, then go ahead and hand stitch it. If you're in a rush, sometimes you just want to get a project done, glue basting is your absolute friend. So I've got a water soluble glue pen here. This one's by Soline, but I know that other people do make them. It's important that you use something that is water soluble so that it doesn't get too clogged up and too heavy and thick, and you don't really want a finished project full of glue. This one here, it's not got too much tack to it, so it makes it okay for removing the papers. This pen I've got here is a blue, but you can also get them in different colours. I think there's a yellow and a pink, something like that. So with the glue basting, it's quite simple. Again, you place your template in the middle of your fabric and you just run a slick of glue. You don't want to go too heavy with your glue. Oh, there's a bit of extra that's come out from the pen. And just run a slick of glue along one edge, and then you take your fingernail, lift up that edge and press down on that paper. Personally, I don't like to glue on the fabric itself. I prefer to glue on the paper. It just makes it easier for when you're stitching. And just run your glue just inside the template, not right up to the edge. So I'll stick the pen down so you can see. I've put the glue along that paper edge, and then I'm going to fold that up with my finger. So that's super quick. So again, just work your way around all the corners, all the sides. As you go, just a little bit. You don't need to use too much. So this is quick, but of course there is a cost to the pen and the glue refills. But if you're looking to move slightly quicker with a project, it's an absolute bonus to have an option for a glue pen. And that's it. That really is as simple as that. You see how quick that was. There you go. And what I find nice about the glue pen is actually this edge you get is naturally sharper than the edge for when you've hand stitched these in place. I'm not sure whether you'll be able to see, but you can just about see. You can see how this glue based one is actually got a sharper edge than the one where I've basted. So actually I like to go back once I've basted these and just give those a bit of a press to give a slightly sharper edge, because that makes it easier for when you come to attach hexes to each other at a later stage. So there we go. We've got 3 different methods of doing your hexes. We've got the stitching through the paper and the fabric. We've got stitching through the fabric only, and we've got stitching with the glue pen. So there you go.
I hope you found my EPP basting tutorial useful. I hope you've picked up some tips, and I hope you've picked up the confidence to give English paper piecing a try. It really is a great fun project to do. Don't forget to check out my website. I've got a free sheet of hexes, 1-inch hexes that you can print out and use at home. I also use social media, so don't forget to come and follow me. I use Instagram, and I've got a Facebook page. Thanks so much for watching, and I shall see you next time. Bye.